Early voting in the Georgia runoffs, which will determine the control of the United States Senate, is shattering records. And while it's only been a few weeks since Election Day, there's been story after story after story about corruption and ethics issues that both Republican Senate candidates, appointed Senator Kelly Loeffler and incumbent Senator David Perdue, continue to face, including today's Daily Beast report, which reveals that the value of Loeffler's Atlanta mansion dropped $6 million overnight in 2016, and no one can explain why. The estate went from a $10.5 million appraisal to $4.1 million, resulting in a much lower tax bill for the senator and her husband. The report states that there is no indication that Loeffler or her husband acted improperly. However, several Georgia-based property tax and real estate experts told the Daily Beast that the decline in the mansion's value was very unusual. I'm joined now by Sam Brody, author of that piece and congressional reporter for the Daily Beast, and Representative-elect Nikema Williams of Georgia. Thank you both for being here. And Sam, I'm going to go to you first. When I read your story that talked about Kelly Loeffler putting hundreds of thousands of dollars in renovations into her property, and anyone who's watched HGTV like once knows that when you do renos, it actually increases the value of your property. Yet the value of her property declined sharply. And I'll tell you what I thought of immediately after I read your story. This is Michael Cohen, and this was his testimony to Congress. Take a listen.
It was my experience that Mr. Trump inflated his total assets when it served his purposes, such as trying to be listed amongst the wealthiest people in Forbes, and deflated his assets to reduce his real estate taxes.
Sam, that's what it sounded like to me. Do you have evidence that that may be what Kelly Loeffler was doing?
No, so we don't necessarily have any evidence that Kelly Loeffler or her husband took any specific action to generate this huge reduction in their property tax bill. This is a decision that's made by the Board of Assessors in Fulton County, which is home to Atlanta. But we do have evidence that the decision that the Board of Assessors made in Fulton County was just really, really unusual. As you noted, we spoke to a number of experts on this stuff here in Atlanta and elsewhere, who all said that to see a drop in valuation of 60% from one home to the next is really, really unusual. Something to keep in mind, too, is, as you noted, they did renovations to the property. Their neighbors didn't see any similar reductions in the values of their homes. And the Atlanta property market at this time was absolutely surging. Homes like that were not seeing drops of $6 million. They were seeing increases. So there's a lot of questions about how the county handled this, and they weren't able to give us an answer. We inquired, and they said, we don't really have an answer. They informed us that the people who were in leadership at the office at this time all do not work there anymore. We got our hands on the documents where the county is supposed to sort of show their work, and it really doesn't make any sense.
How much money did she and her husband, who I should note for everyone is the CEO of the New York Stock Exchange, so they're already rich. So all the things that she's been accused of that make her richer, she didn't need the money, like she's rich. How much money did they save in taxes?
So they saved $110,000 in property taxes their first year. And then this change happened in 2016. Their home since then has not come even close to the initial value of $10.5 million that it once had. So, I mean, it saved them somewhere around $500,000 in the last 5 years. I mean, this is one of the most valuable, properties in the entire city of Atlanta, a huge generator of tax revenue for the county in the property sphere. So it's just unusual that a drop like this would occur. We were told, got various theories from experts on this, who said a number of things could have happened. It could have been a mistake. Somebody could have changed it. They could have done a review, which is, again, odd because this was the only house to see a drop like this. But the only thing we really do know is that whatever happened on the county side, two of the wealthiest people in Atlanta got an enormous tax break on their home.
That deprived Atlanta and the state of Georgia of tax revenue that could help pay for schools in Atlanta. I just think we should note that. Representative Williams, this sounds for all the world like corruption. It just does. There is no explanation for it. I think it's important, that we clarified the scope of what Sam Brody was able to find. But as an elected official, what do you make of the fact that at least $500,000 or so dollars in tax revenue was lost to the state of Georgia?
Joy, I think when people show you who they are, we should believe them. And we have seen time and time again that even at the brink of this pandemic, Kelly Loeffler looked out for herself, her own stock portfolio, and lined her own pockets instead of looking out for the best interest of everyday Georgians. And this just tracks in the same playbook. And so I know that when everybody else was prepping and trying to buy toilet paper and getting ready for the pandemic, I was getting my son, who's a student in Atlanta Public Schools, who could have used that additional revenue in our school system. She was not looking out for the best interest of everyday Georgians, but for herself. So this is in line with who she's shown us that she is.
You know, there are two kinds of politicians. There is a kind like you're in the seat of the late great John Lewis, who's truly a public servant, you know, and there are people who seem to use the seat to enrich themselves and help themselves out and who have really questionable sort of relationships to democracy. I want to